evening. This is the meeting of Police Accountability Board for Prince George's County.
We can't leave you on this. Then what? It's all right.
Good evening. This is the meeting of the Prince George's County Police Accountability Board. Today's date is January 22nd. The time is now 6:38 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Go ahead and take the vote. Vice Chair Sanchez.
Present.
James.
Present.
Mrs. Bryant.
Present.
Mrs. Spring.
Present.
Dr. Coleman. Mr. Jones. Melton. O'Neill. Mrs. Redley. All right. We got one. Next up, let's go to the review and approve minutes. Everyone with an opportunity to review that. If you need extra additional time, you let us know. If not,
I move that we approve the December 11th minutes.
thank you, sir. Motion to approve the December 11th minutes from 2024, made by Vice Chair Sanchez. Is there a second?
Second.
Who seconded? I'm sorry. Oh, okay, seconded by Mr. James. All in favor to approve the minutes of December 11th, 2024, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Said aye. Vice Chair, we have to. Very short agenda, empty agenda. Do the subcommittee assignments, thought that we would keep starting to get off the subcommittee assignments. So moving forward, 6 months we can report out, and then 5 months from now we can report out for the annual report. So I thought this was an opportunity for us to discuss what subcommittee we want. I have asked Dr. Coleman to not control the data, but flow the data. So does anybody have a subcommittee that they want to lead or be part of? Yes, sir.
I'd like to be a part of a subcommittee that is charged with reviewing cases and complaints and reporting out to the larger board.
Cases.
Part of community outreach.
I do agree with that.
Pardon me?
I'll do what you want to. Anyone else? So who's on your committee? Data. Data transmitting. Yes.
So the different community policy. And the
Analytics. Oh, okay. That's- No, no.
Okay, what do you want to call it? He said case review, then complaint review. What would you call it?
Yeah.
We didn't case.
Unless it's changed. Yeah.
Put it out for that.
That's fine.
Put it out for,
Case review.
who you gonna do that? So it's. Okay.
Dr. Coleman. training. No,
We didn't have any,
Mr.
on
Brian,
data,
Mr. O'Neill,
and data were.
Dr. Cole.
Right.
And so what's needed to gather all the, there's like the data points that were in the annual reports, like pull all that together, do a couple of analyses.
Chair, with
Yes,
this subcommittee, would there be, like, for instance, with the case review, will that be a report now, I mean, like, what are the plans for?
So-
How that would look?
Good
Yeah.
question. Good question. So, for each meeting, if we see a trend, for an example, from one meeting to the next, then I think that that subcommittee may put on the agenda if they had something that they want to discuss. Based off what they said, seeing the trends. One example, if, the committee that Mr. Melvin is going to be a part of, I think if they see something that, this is what they need further ways to, then they can report out. I was thinking that we, sometimes we can work behind the scenes, not always at the meeting. So then when June comes, we can go ahead and report out at that point of the things that we have. You look like you're thinking about something. Come on.
So I think that is a good idea for most committees.
Okay.
So I think with that particular committee, with the cases and reviews, I think we as a board, we need to probably get, I don't know,
Once a
on
month.
the committee, we need to probably put out more, because that will be when we get our training.
Okay.
Different things and maybe things that we share that maybe we didn't as a group. Like, I don't know how, because I want to be a member, I'm assuming that each committee has leads. I'll be able to release, I don't know exactly how you want to run it, but so I guess we'll defer to him, but I'm just saying, I think we'll be things that we probably, we do more than, I think
Okay.
that's the committee.
So how about this initially, let's go ahead and just say every meeting, we'll go ahead and report out. Is that okay?
I think it would be good if every meeting that you call the committee, see if they have anything, and I say, I don't have anything.
Rather than put it on the agenda and not have it. Okay. Is that okay?
And also, so review of the cases, does that mean that you'll have full access to all the cases?
So I'd have to, check on that, but I don't think you have full access. I think there will be some redactions will be in some of those cases. But, yeah, so I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry. Yes, for everybody. Yes, everybody will have access to all of the case. Oh, yeah. Oh, everybody speaking to the mic. Sign language works for me. Sorry, so. It was on hold again. Yeah, check, push the button one more time. Oh, the lights are down. There you go.
So are you saying everybody will have access?
Well, I
You were
I
just
get the
saying
message, right,
everybody.
everybody speaking to the mic. So what we'll do is, we'll figure out who can have access, because there was, state training said that there are some cases that we are not allowed to see as the police come. Because of the information that is contained.
But we would
That's the whole point.
So, well, let me not speak, we do have, Mr. Bennett here. Mr. Bennett, would you be able to address that, sir?
There's some cases that we can't have access to because of the data that information is in.
I might have to see some, attorney Joe Camp on that, but I'm not. Can you recall?
Any of the cases that we would, the police county, we have to see all of the information on the case. Okay, okay. Well, then there was something that was different in this episode.
I think maybe, let me just, because I'm on, I think maybe there are some cases that were sensitive that can't be discussed in public.
Okay.
But there may be cases that if you need to, that may have, that maybe say a sexual content or something like that, underage victim, you will go into closed session and discuss those cases, but not in public view, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's their job.
Okay. Yes.
That's what I was saying, is that.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
We're just talking about the cases that we actually get from administration charging board or whatever to come up. We don't have to worry about that stuff like that. That's before we even get to us. You know, so we don't have to worry about all that.
So at where it stands now, we will have access to the cases.
Okay.
For you, ma'am.
And that's already been really available online.
I don't know online, but it may be in one of the drives.
That's what I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Melton actually showed us a couple of meetings ago how to access that.
I'll be on.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Do you,
Say anything about Peggy now having access to those files, because I haven't received them.
So I thought that there, my understanding, there was supposed to be some redactions and, Mr. Bennett may be correct, but I think that it's safe to check with Mr. Sylvia to make sure
And
that.
Isabel is still,
Perfect.
I haven't received anything.
Okay,
I was told that we want to.
that's what what
Per,
They-
but I
correct.
wasn't in that conversation.
I was in that meeting and, I mean, that training, and that's what he said. We'll clarify and make sure, have that answer. For next week. For
Before the next meeting or during?
this week. We'll have that answer. So has anybody attempted to review any of the cases? So you've been able to access? It? Okay, so there's eyes?
It's something in there already, but they're over.
Over, I don't know.
Okay.
See something in it. Probably.
So if you can see him, Mr. Norton, I don't understand why we would not, unless Mr. Silver said.
From that time, I had to.
Okay, so I'll check on that. I'll send him an email. Okay, thank you.
And he says that we're not clear understanding why.
Well, it'll come along with the next thing. I
Okay.
just can't say no.
Yeah.
We'll have that. Provide that. Yeah, yes. So. What did we call that? It didn't change the data analytics.
Case review.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Um, as far as the committees, I think maybe after the meeting, if we could have a subcommittee meet, and I'd like to maybe talk for a few minutes about how he wants us to. Push us by you.
Put them on the spot.
You need time to figure out how you want to work it. I know we're signing up, but I just want to make sure we're getting things done. So do you have an idea of how you want to work, or you need some time, maybe a week later?
Yeah, I think it's important that we sort of operate within the Open Meetings Act. So it's my understanding, we can't do but so much official business outside. We can do independent work. So I think you can utilize the meetings to not only report out developments, but then also I think we should take advantage of that time to maybe take a few minutes to strategize on what's next for each subcommittee amongst those in that group. The rest of the board can kind of chime in, things like that. And then when we go back, we can kind of do our thing without it necessarily being a conflict. As it relates to this, I think it's important. This is one of the things we're charged with, was looking at complaints. But I think it's also important that, we can kind of, not only will the rest of the board have access, I think we can have informed conversations about what kind of trends we're seeing. Any other sort of things that we can glean from the information. It'll just be relevant, but it'll be reoccurring. And I think that's important that we keep our eye on. Yeah, and I think partly it's important that the people in the committee also get to contribute to what that looks like. So it won't just be me setting it up. I think if you have ideas about what that looks like, Dr. Coleman, like we can just evolve it as we go.
Did that work for you? Mr. Smith? You
I'm
want
gonna
to
leave
play
it
this?
there right now.
I saw
Because
it.
I'm a logistical type person, so I'm gonna wait, but what I'm hearing is we'll get together later to determine which is as far as like, who do what.
Yeah.
Because we don't all want to be doing the same case, things like that.
Yeah.
So you're saying at a later date, once we get all the committees, subcommittees, then we'll amongst.
And I'd love to give more information from the feedback we get. I think you said Mr. Silver.
Yes.
Yeah, we can get a cadence on what kind of cases we're gonna get on a regular basis that'll help us know what we're gonna be getting on a regular.
Also, I was thinking about, subcommittee for recommendations. Like one. Yeah, so for an example, if based off of data and the case review, we saw something that may, uh, require potential recommendation, maybe that subcommittee can take a look at it and make the recommendations. Present it to the
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe as it pertains to that, each subcommittee develop recommendations
Okay.
within their subject area.
Okay,
I think that'd be a great outcome. Because that particular group is gonna be far more familiar.
so then each group take a look at whatever it is they're doing, and then there'll be another section, recommendations.
Yeah, so
Okay.
community events, they could say, you know, these events were fruitful this year, we recommend we go back to these events, not so much, wasn't our intended audience. You know,
I was thinking
we
more,
recommend we look at this population in the future, like just, you
Gotcha.
know.
okay, I was thinking more recommendations that we would submit up. As the police accountability, we may want to see change then.
Yeah, oh, okay, two policing songs.
Yes,
But those could come from those recommendations.
Yeah.
You see something, you can, oh, you know, you can get something that brought us to the level thinking. They do business in a way that the state tell us to do it.
so, and I still think that it would be good to have a subcommittee that will do recommendations. Those recommendations from each subcommittee can send them over to that other
Yeah,
committee.
if there is a separate committee.
Okay.
And they say, hey,
What do you-
case review, what do you all think? We're gonna put this into our, how we found that.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, and the recommendations would be the ones that we've used to develop questions. We meet with chiefs for the basis. That are just guessing, we use those recommendations to develop the question and ask them, are these trends? What we hear in the community, so it's, that, you know, council. When we be.
I think that, every subcommittee will be able to have some questions developed, that we will ask the chiefs based on some data. Some,
These recommendations from all the.
yeah, I heard what you said. I'm just repeating it because you don't have a mic. So I think that, every subcommittee will be able to come up with some, questions based off the data. For example, if Mr. Melton's subcommittee saw something, and that would be, trend maybe for whatever law enforcement agency the chief was speaking with at that particular. Brian suggested, that every committee who has, the subcommittee will submit their recommendations at the end of their presentation.
You know, I think that format, that event format, the sheet that, you know, here's where I went.
Mhm.
We can use that for ours. It does have space.
Okay.
And it might not be a bad idea to have a format for the case review. Here's what the issue was, here's the complaint record. This is this position, that's what you're talking.
We already have one, I think Carlos did one.
Right, okay.
So we already have pretty much everything we need to be just.
Anyone else?
Yeah, there also might be a need for a subcommittee to do member selection as needed. So we need to appoint new members to the AHB.
Oh, yeah, I would be do that without all the impact. Tony.
So, so last time we opened it up, not everybody came to the process that we had opened up for interviews. So if everybody wants to be involved, then sure. But if that's not gonna happen, then we need to just have some procedures in place to ensure that we have a protocol for when we want to appoint new members and vet them, review their applications, et cetera.
You said you just volunteered for it too? Just,
Sure.
okay.
And I guess I just need some clarity about the outreach. Will that be like events that we deem are appropriate, or using the ones that Tangi's already put together, and how
Whatever subcommittee comes up with, that makes sense to us. I don't think that we should restrict it, anyway. I think that.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
What the community outreach look like to you?
Right.
Because I think it might look a little different to me, so I think you explain, oh,
To me, what I've done in the past, which so that's why I volunteered, it's very natural, is to go to community meetings where the police are either speaking or whether in the town hall that involves this matters.
okay.
And if you think of something different than that, maybe I can organize community even for us, just for us to go and talk to the community investment or like.
There was an idea, I don't know where it left off, where we talked about getting citizen feedback, or even something on the website for people that submit feedback. I think community engagement should also tackle addressing any of that, like responding to any of that.
Feedback.
Yeah, like that's community engagement as well.
So maybe we can develop a form with QR code we can place on the website.
Yeah, I thought we had decided, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yes, we're working on it. Survey.
Okay. Okay.
And what, I'm sorry, what did,
We're working on that man survey. to the citizens.
okay, perfect.
So this, community outreach would only be events involving the police?
No. What I was saying. No, what I was saying is even, creating an event where we would be there for the community to talk to us, if the board would like to see that. And I think we did talk about that initially in one of our, strategy sessions.
You know, I was thinking, this year, I think we need to do more outreach to the community, because people still don't. And I think, as Brian went to a couple of meetings where the delegates gave meeting on police and town meetings on Saturday. They had maybe the chief of Prince George's County and maybe chief of Forest Heights. I think we should be part of that, so that we can do our PowerPoint in those kind of meetings like that. We also should be having a meeting with with CASA or whatever, to the listening sessions, do the presentation, and then listen what they got to do. So I think it's the whole 9 yards, because we do a lot of police chief stuff. We done a lot of, this year we need to do more community stuff, so people are more aware of what we're doing and our purpose in the whole 9 yards. So I mean, I think it should reach the whole gamut of the community involvement. That's what I'm saying. So it's all that, you know what I mean? I went to a couple of meetings, some of you went to a couple of meetings, and they might say, well, there's no Miss Coleman or whoever, the police accountability board just waving our hands. I think we should be on that, where we're on the program. So they say, oh, I didn't know that, you know what I mean? So I think that's what I'm looking at, to be on this subject, to work out something.
So we'll work that out if there's any of the next meeting, what we're planning to do. Perfect. Did you have some ideas?
Well, I was just wondering, like, for instance, Chief Aziz, they were all at the bowling alley, bowling, I think it might have been called Bowling for Gold, or something, raising money
Right.
for, community service events. Is that an event that we would participate in or no? That's
Well, if
one
you-
of them.
But see, like, if you leave us there, if we can have a table or something at that, if we know, we can have a table or something, to give away our trinkets and stuff like that, and sit at, one of us, sit at, just like the National Night Out, when we did like that. You know, we had a table, people came up to us like that, you know, but we have to be aware of those things that happen if we want it.
One recommendation that I would have, just from a communication standpoint, is just determining what is your intent? So if our intent is to increase awareness about process, and about things like that, I think then you take that intent and pair it with events that seem to give you the best opportunity to convey that message. Personally, I think sometimes that could be a little awkward, being at these events, talking about how to submit complaints. They have been more than welcoming to us for that, but I also feel like I just want to recognize that sometimes that might feel a little weird. They hosting an event, we got a table over there. It's just the perception. That's me, but I think that there are a number of events that we could figure already happening in the community, and I think there might be opportunities for us to develop our own. But again, for that subcommittee, I would just say maybe start with the intent behind what we're trying to convey and who we're trying to convey it to. I think there are a number of at-risk communities who are vulnerable and would love to hear about the process who don't know anything about it. And I feel like we should take a targeted approach. I think Tangi did an amazing job just giving a wide breadth of events for us to go to. But I think there are even still more populations that we probably didn't tap into just yet. And I think if we just give a look at what we're trying, who we're trying to convey this to, and who could use this information, that'd be a good start.
Yeah, and I think also whenever the subcommittee has the recommendations for different, community outreach events, bring it back to the board, we as a board voting, whether or not we want to that, particularly community outreach event. We just don't want to say we're going to go to this meeting and then people just show up and go to the meeting. I think that all board members need to know in case other board members want to participate and show up and support there. So I think it's important that we, submit that, just like, we had the calendar. So the sooner we can get it on the calendar, we'll know it. But I know it's not possible to do it right now because I have to communicate with other community, organizations. But the sooner we get it on the calendar, that everybody maybe have an opportunity to attend. So.
Yeah, I agree. I view these as steering committees. So you're driving the work, but it's a collective decision. So we bring it back to the larger group. And everybody has an opportunity to hear and offer feedback, and we make the decisions collectively.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Just one other thing.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
state's attorney usually has something called, some kind of event called court in the courthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm thinking it's the wrong name, but it's a lot of, different communities attend that event. I attend sometimes, usually a lot of civic,
So,
leaders,
oh, okay.
attend, but that is a really good meeting, and she also teach.
Which is what I do. So one of the things I think that we can do is, if we have recommendations like that, always submit it to whoever in charge of that committee. And then they'll in fact put it together and report back to them. Whatever the suggestions. That's a good. Yes, ma'am. It wasn't voluntary. So, thank you.
There's 3 people.
Yes. Thank you. So we had. New cases, complaints, community outreach, data and trends. What was the outreach? Just talk about
Appointments and nominations.
case. Thank you, sir. That is.
Now, and we have a vacancy for the administrative charging committee. those committees, you got a vacancy, you know?
It's not really a vacancy.
Huh?
It's not really a vacancy. You have 9 people. Yeah, it's one from the pool that,
So do we have to interview that person again? We can interview him first?
I mean, it'd be up to you if you wanted to, but I think probably want to do it for a larger group, right?
No, I'm saying, who would replace the person who resigned? That's what my question is.
We appointed a bunch of people to rotate through so that if people left, we didn't have to do this every time.
Who is in the next rotation? How did that person get over?
We appointed 9 people. They only use one at a time.
Okay.
So we have a bench of people they can rotate
So
through.
which board was it? The hearing or
The administrative hearing.
or administrative hearing?
What about the vacancy that's on this one?
I don't know, I'm not in that process.
Is that, was that a county executive?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have a county executive. I mean, we do.
Steve, has it been brought to attention?
Oh, yeah, there we, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Probably not gonna have.
Also, some people will be removed from the board once the new county exec comes on, that was appointed by the county exec. I'm not talking about the council.
So everybody's different, but in my experience, both terms are terms. And they might ask you to resign. But
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Typically, the terms of the terms. Sometimes I have seen, and probably you all, where they will request members of those boards to resign. For them to, and there've been a couple of times where they have not. But I don't see them taking them off because in terms they'll ask that person or persons to resign. Or to stay, or to just let their term complete.
And
There are other, this person's term expires sometime.
I believe so, but those members, I don't know.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Ms. King.
I was gonna say, perhaps we could ask Sam to get the
Yeah,
list.
exactly.
So that we know.
Okay. Anything else?
This is a political, non-political statement. Um, there are a number of candidates forums that are occurring up until the election in March. And given the importance of what this group does, it might be useful if, people were able to attend and see the county executive's positions on some of the police information. So if you're interested, there are numbers coming up. That was an education site. Okay, listen up.
Only attorney can say political, non-political. But thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
The sessions that came out with the candidates that running for county.
I have. There's
I
one.
do too.
Someone on
You don't have-
February, so it's one Saturday, there's one on the 15th of February, there's one on the 1st of February. Several community organizations. that have done this. Ebenezer and Temple. I can share with one side.
That's on the sheet.
What are we talking about?
Candidate.
What are we talking about?
Well, anybody's free to bring up anything that they feel that they want to talk
I
about.
think it was appropriate.
Okay. Yes.
Also really needed as a decision, that ethics decision. I am maybe in legislative work, some of the issues may involve this accountability. See whether that's. Whether we can have a discussion. I mean, no more. So we might want to have. This debate. That's what I'm.
That should be well written, that's the holiday. Yeah. Any other things, when it comes to supplements? And let's say that as we're moving along, if a subcommittee says that they see something in another area that they may need to have other input, or if another member sees another area where we may want to have another subcommittee to look at some things, we can definitely do that. But I think getting it started, and like Mrs. Spring suggested, every meeting report out, I think that's important. And then also at the, maybe 5 or 6 month mark, can kind of do maybe a review of some of the things that we got. Then when the annual report is due in October and November, it'll be a very easy lift.
We have here, training and education, is that a committee you wanted to?
Well, no, there was nothing from that.
Oh, that's how, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to mention, I don't know, that's just my soul. I know Bristol sent us this, current legislation. Yeah, it's going to affect us.
When did you get that?
Exactly.
Yeah, she emailed it to us today or yesterday. It's a list of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bills as it relates to police accountability.
I thought some of them were just interest.
Yeah, I'm just saying, she just sent it to us to look at it. Yeah, she-
Oh, okay.
But I'm saying. They're trying to change the way accountability boards are set up and going out.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that, some of the legislators are considering changing so that the PAP has access to an investigator and all of that. And I'm not sure, maybe they're structured differently than we are, whether their ACCs don't have the investigators and all those personnel in their department. But I just heard people mention that they think it's not productive, that if we don't have investigators, we don't have that. It doesn't really affect us, I don't think, because we get the reports, we get the reporting huge, in my view.
I think because some of the other jurisdictions may be smaller, don't have personnel or even have the budget for that, so I think that was part of it. And I'm not mistaken, I believe that one jurisdiction only had one person for both boards, if I'm not mistaken. And I so, but I thought that out. Also, know that if anything else on subcommittees. So I just wanted to bring up also that we know that if there's a budget deficit, so I think it's important that we do our part to make sure that we trim the fat. And I'm thinking that maybe going to once a month meetings will help to kind of look at that. Also, we have to make sure that anything that we do outside of the meetings, that we need to get that in to make sure that it's one, okay to do, going to submit a time card for it. And then also, Mrs. Rose has to, that, We just don't want to say we looked at a case 4 hours and submitted it with our time card. I think we need to be fiscally responsible to make sure that we're doing the best that we can do. So we need to do our part to make sure that we can try to trim the fat. And
So-
don't go ahead.
No, I was asking, if we do, of course, we have to vote on that. If we do move to once a month, what is your recommendation that it be on the second Wednesday?
But we'll figure that part out. That's what we'll talk about. I know they brought up, so I thought about it. And because now we have these subcommittees, it will be easier for us as far as coming to the action meeting. So if, for example, if Mr. Melton's group was going to meet to do something, of course, they would submit the time card for that. But to let myself, as vice chair, Ms. Rose know that we're going to be meeting, here's what we want to, do. And then we have to get it approved by the staff and say, okay, because we don't want people to just say that they're just reviewing cases. Things should be done collectively rather than say individually to say, well, I looked at the case for this, but we want to just make sure that we do our part. We're not doing watching us many things that's important. That's one area that we should trim the fat. I have other areas that I think that we can trim the fat. We'll get into that, but I think that we need to all think about being more fiscally responsible. This is the money of the citizens as well as our.
So what is your proposal as to move?
At the next meeting. Anybody else?
I know the acting county executive is starting, because I know this is section. Next week. I think it's, yeah, I think it's 31st. 21st. Okay.
Oh. March.
Or
February 3rd.
It was 21st, but it was extended, it was changed because of the weather. So it's February 3rd.
That's the budget.
Yeah, but
No, so we
this
set a
is
listing
session
session.
about the budget.
Yeah.
We should make the budget to,
So. Anybody, anything else? So it's like,
Um, One additional question, I think last year we talked about potentially seeing who else we might want to share the annual report with, now that it's done. We had talked about a number of like municipal groups, community outreach groups. This might be a good time to share, but I'll leave that. And,
okay.
A printed copy.
Yeah, sure. Yes, ma'am. I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Have an answer.
Okay, so it did go out to stakeholders. And then I think that's a good point too, that we have a copy of the end. Entity out, somebody wants to take a look at it, and probably data, stuff like that. Okay, and I think it's good to have, it printed out, because we know our older population sometimes like to lay hands on things, so I think that's it. But we gotta save trees, cut costs. Save trees, cut costs. Anything else? Like, do we have anything, sir? On any of that? All right. And then if anybody thinks of another subcommittee, they'll bring it back. We'll talk about that. And moving on to community outreach, there's no one training. I don't have any announcements, Mr. Vice Chair.
No, not for me.
Sure, this is Mike, please.
No, good thinking.
Staff, do you guys have anything?
I will be sending out an email. My next week, same as last year, I think it's due April. Just send it out. Next week.
Okay,
Have a-
okay, okay. And the sooner the better. of course. Yes. And there's a fine also, $10 per day, $10 per day. Yep, think so, yes, $10 per day.
Yes.
Yep. Heard that from the back. Resounding yes. Oh, we do have this back member. I had an opportunity to meet her. So, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joanne. I'm the new admin aide.
Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Joanne. I just wanted to say, she got me when I walked in. So, well, thank you. All right, that's it for me. Anybody have anything else? Yes, ma'am. Oh, see, okay,
March 10th.
okay. Perfect person for that, Ms. Angie, she'll send that out.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but in 13 long weeks. It was
Wow.
hard.
Yes.
That's the closes up, and I just want to make sure, so next meeting, when we meet, we're talking about meeting once a month, we're gonna vote, then, or is it discussing?
No, we can vote at that meeting.
And then we'll also, as far as subcommittee, dig into that. and
Yes.
Figure out how they're gonna work and do all of that.
Well, I think whoever's on that subcommittee, it can kind of be behind the scenes, you guys can talk about it. We can do it at that meeting. You can put it down, so, yeah, finalize.
Yeah, that's why I recommend that we all have our game.
Yes. That's perfect. She, a sports mom, so she knows, and logistics. That's right, logistics. So thank you, logistics. Okay. That was it. Anything else? Thank you for having me. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Okay. I can't get somebody to meet the name.
She's outside.
She's outside?
She's downstairs. She just got pulled up.
Oh, okay. Okay, someone, did someone go let her in? Okay. Yeah. I-
There's no one to let me.
Oh, okay.
We're coming.
Okay. I like it. Okay. Vice Sanchez, said that he went on the ride.
Yeah, I did one after Christmas, before New Year's. I think it was the 28th, I think it was, yeah. Prince George's Police Department, District 1, right around where I live. So it's got, Langley Park, Lewisdale, parts of Hyattsville, Adelphi, that sort of area there, right up to some parts of College Park as well. So it was actually really interesting just because we actually ended up responding to a few medical calls. And one of the policies in Prince George's County is that if someone calls for service from an ambulance, the ambulance won't actually just show up, but a police officer has to go in first to verify that the scene is safe. And then, so sometimes you'll actually see the ambulance kind of posted up right around the corner until the officer gets in, clears it, and then tells them that they can come in. Because of, I think 4 or 5 years ago, somebody may remember, there was an EMT that was shot in a home. And it was like an ambulance basically. So ever since then, the police always shows up first. So yeah, one of the things that was interesting was one of the calls was actually for a house that basically just served as multiple Airbnbs and for people from out of town. And these young people had bought some edibles and were having side effects from the edibles. that are from out of town. It's just really, really kind of interesting to see some of the things that happen. But one of the things that actually came up that I thought was interesting that maybe we could explore a little bit more was it has to do with the patrol vehicles. And so the folks the mechanics that work on and maintain the police vehicles aren't police employees, they're county employees. And so those garages are open Monday through Friday. And they have told the officers that they need to take their vehicles in for routine maintenance, but they don't schedule. So instead, you hit a certain mileage, you just take your car in, and then you have to wait until whenever they get to it. And so there are times that those vehicles are sitting there for weeks waiting to be serviced because they don't work on the cars on the weekends. They do operate during the day and on evenings, but there's nothing on the weekends. So if you have an issue with your vehicle on the weekends, there's nowhere to take it. And so what ends up happening is that sometimes the officers in certain districts end up not having enough patrol vehicles. So they have to tandem vehicles. And that's less vehicles that are on the street. So one of the things that was really interesting for my ride along was the officer that I rode with. Shout out to Officer Belcher. He's been working that beat for about 6 years. And so he has his hotspots that he goes to. And it was very effective. It was very effective. He drove through certain areas, knows where the stolen cars end up. So he was going to check all his spots and he was just continually doing that in between calls of service. And the detrimental part was that if they lose a vehicle, that's one less person that's out there. And for them, at least in District 1, one of the things that they were talking about was that the proactive work that their lieutenants and their sergeants have them doing, writing down, has been a huge deterrent in a lot of crime by homeless folks, a lot of drug crime that they had seen in their area. And so, it kind of seems as if the vehicles are such an important tool that the officers have that, if there's something that can be done to ensure that maintenance is, like if you make an appointment, you take it and you're getting it back that day, that makes more sense than 6,000 miles, you got to bring it in and then just leave it there. And whenever it's ready, it's ready. Especially if it's just rotate tires and an oil change. It shouldn't, the officers were basically saying there are times that out of pocket, they'll just go to a Jiffy Lube and get it done there instead of taking it to the service because they're so short on vehicles and they just need the vehicles back. So that was just something that was really interesting. I really did get to see how critical those vehicles controlling hotspots is, especially at night. So I was there from 5 p.m. until 10 p.m. And the second thing was that in the area that we were in, it's a large Spanish speaking population. And I think they had one officer that spoke Spanish. And so at most of the stops where it was someone that was Spanish speaking, they actually came up to me for clarification they were like, what is he saying? Is this what do I do next? And that sort of thing. And so I was having to do a little translation job with the officers. And so I think it just in terms of recruitment, when we talked about, how can we help the police department be smarter recruiting officers that are able to better deal with the communities that they're going to be in, that sort of thing. So it's, just a couple of things that came to my attention during that. But overall, it was a great experience and just very impressed with the folks that are every day and every night out there working in our communities, just, kind of out there keeping us safe while we're at home. Don't even realize that they're out there doing.
You said they were homeless. Do we know the police stations in this something?
Yeah, I get emails that they set up warming stations throughout the county. And the officers do, at least when I was running around, I was surprised with how many people they knew on a first name basis. So they knew them and they stopped, they would talk to them and all that. But there are also a lot of people that they said that no matter how much they talk to them, they're going to refuse whatever help because they just want to be out there.
Question about The Spanish officer, so it was the Spanish officer native.
I didn't hear you.
There we go. For the Spanish speaking officer, was, that officer native, and do we know how, folks are certified? Is there training that police departments do? Like, how does that happen, or do they just rely on native speakers?
Yeah, he was of Latino descent, so it was just kind of native.
Yeah.
He was born here. And they do have actually a good amount of folks. They were relaying a story. They do actually try to go out of their way to hire folks who might be immigrants here as well. But at times, that also creates a communication issue at times, because some people's accents are very thick, even though they understand, but it seems like there isn't a whole lot there besides if you can find someone who speaks the language kind of natively. But, it begs the question if there's educational opportunities that they're providing for people to take classes at night, or, to learn a second language. And perhaps, pay them a little bit extra for that.
I think maybe at our next chief's meeting, that may be something that we talk about, and, and find out across the agencies, the LEAs across the county, how does that work? I'm sure in the smaller departments, it's probably even a bigger deficit, even though they're small. So I think that should follow.
And the officer did, in conversation, he did mention that there have been plenty of times that they've been called, and they know that there are things that are being underreported because of that communication gap. And so they end up trying to tell people, well, you can file charges, we can get you help. And especially in domestic violence issues, the women will just say, you know what, forget it, it's fine, and just let things go. In households where they are showing up multiple times, but because of that language barrier, those things don't get taken care of.
And this year, we should have translation. They all have smart.
Yeah, I mean, there are language lines too, like, there are language lines in some county offices. You can call and they'll call someone who's, and at least pass the phone in between, be able to do that. So I think there's definitely technology that they could use to help bridge that a little bit.
I just want to say, I think based on your conversation, that we as a board can look at possible recommendations about what you were saying as far as the language. If we notice that's something we can keep our eye out on. And also as far as if any other officers or if we do any other bylaws, the issue about the maintenance, if that can tie into maybe some recommendation for us later on. We can just keep an eye out and know it's one officer, but if we are reviewing cases or we talk, notice that there's a trend, maybe those two could be some type of recommendations that we later on make.
Yeah, that was an issue with my rider office. Well, we had to pick up his vehicle while I was in the car before it closed at 5.
Yeah.
It's an issue. It really is. Yep. Yes.
That's a situation where budget is,
Yeah, make an appointment, say drop it off today, say
no, I'm talking about the overall,
the vehicle.
the shortage of the evening, stuff like that.
Sure.
Budget.
Yeah, and they're trying to. So I think the way it was explained to me, and this was from multiple, at one call, there were a lot of officers there, and so we ended up just having a conversation for a while. And because of them wanting to maintain the life of the vehicles for longer, they've become much more strict on maintenance. So they're hard on, you hit 3,000 miles, bring it in, rotate the tires, do an oil change. And with as many vehicles as they have running, it just means that they inundate the maintenance shop. And without appointments and schedules and all that, then they're just cars sitting in the lot. So they've done that to cut back a little bit and not have to be replacing vehicles as much by doing more maintenance. But then that creates a backlog of maintenance that then makes the vehicles unavailable to them, which is the same problem as if the vehicles just went bad and shut down on them. So.
And just for clarity, they do police fleet, but because it's a county maintenance, they don't, they do other county vehicles, or is it exclusively police?
I don't know what it is, but what the way it was explained to me is that it's the county, they're not police
Right.
mechanics. So I would imagine that it probably is just county fleet vehicles. So that would probably add to the backlog. They're not just for the police department.
So, guess the question would be, how many cars are actually in need of service and how many cars, like, did they share with you, like, how many cars may not be actually working? Okay.
I mean, that would be a good question, I think, for the,
Mhm.
I think our second quarterly meeting, we'll have chief of seats here, so maybe it'll be good to just get an idea of how many vehicles they have running. Period.
So when else go right along? Right, okay.
Had the opportunity to do a couple, and I rode with two municipalities, one being Hyattsville and the other being Bladensburg. Some similarities, I would say, with a smaller jurisdiction, certainly less square footage to cover, square mileage to cover. But also, I used an example in, Hyattsville. I rode with Officer Hernandez. He was really good in knowing what you just spoke about. There are certain communities where there may be a predominantly Spanish-speaking community. There may be a community where there may be dominant French-speaking community. And so understanding that and making sure the officers who have skill set to best communicate was very key. But I'll also say one of the things that I've really noticed about my ride along, and it may have been because I was talking through it with them, was understanding what's your operating policy as we're responding to things. There was at one point a vehicle felony. So I'm like, well, what's the policy? What determines whether you're going to go, you're going to stay, who's involved? What are those limits? I would say, having asked the question of the chief to understand, well, what are your training? What's going on? It was evident to me that particularly there, that the training is being reinforced because he could cite the general orders that determine what was going to happen and whether you engage or not, don't engage, especially in a place like that where your jurisdiction abuts another municipality. You really got to know, what are my general orders? How far can I push? Where do I stop? How do I engage? Because they may use their own dispatch and the neighboring jurisdiction may use county dispatch. So they have to have some communication. So that was something that I took away from that one. Also, separately, spent some time in Bladensburg with Officer Pickering, again, another jurisdiction, about 1.1 square miles. But they know the community, they know kind of where the hot spots are. Started the morning out. So this one I went in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you get a death call. So that was one way to start the morning. But that's a huge impact to an agency like that. One of the things I observed was this gentleman passed, but they have to wait until medical examiner or funeral home comes to take over that scene. And so that turned into an officer being tied up there for about 4 hours. 4 hours, because it was not presumed to be a homicide or anything. So all, and they were like, we don't need to calm down. It's, oh, I need to call a funeral home. Now I'm trying to figure out which funeral home do I call, and that funeral home got, well, when can I get somebody there? But for, you know, a squad of 4 to have an officer unavailable for 4 hours because they were required to stay there is not efficient. And I don't think it was anything that the agency did or their policy. I think they were fulfilling the law and obligation, but to think about that in some of the areas that can impact their ability to respond to other calls, certainly can take a toll too. So definitely had good feedback, understanding the officers, understanding both the PAB, that process, you know, what they thought about it. And many times they've had some explanations, but I think that there's an opportunity to do some education and outreach so that they understand a little bit more about the role of this board, understanding even, you know, disciplinary matrix, they understand it exists, but why or how is a little bit kind of behind the curtain. And I would also say there are lots of things that are, that occur that probably, aren't the most worthwhile investment for our ACC. As I think about some of the things too. So because they go through different processes, there's a lot that I think that the agencies can do locally to address some concerns. I think as well as the community, even meeting with some community folks, getting that feedback from them. There are things I think they want to address locally too. So giving voice to the community in that process is important. But two really good agencies, but I think a different perspective when you ride with a municipality to kind of see, what they have to cover and how they engage their community.
Question. So, you said they had 4 officers for the whole department?
So the minimum requirement in state for a squad is 4. So when you're running a team for any shift, the minimum you have is 4.
Okay.
And so I'm saying, when you got that 4 out on patrol in that, area, you have to take one person out because of that instance. And again, he may have been there, literally could not do anything else, but just sit and wait. Thankfully, he was going in and checking, with the deceased mom who wanted to make sure the family knew. She insisted on taking photos. But again, there are cultural differences. And she wanted to take photos to send the family. But he was that was one of the things he was mindful of, was let me go in here and check and make sure she's okay. So about every 20 minutes or so, that was his plan, was just going. But it literally took him out of service for about 4 hours.
And so how long, after the funeral director or medical examiner showed up for that process?
I think that's pretty quick. It's just they have to get on scene and, agencies just can't leave that person. So they've got to sit there. They may be in and out in 10, 12 minutes, so it can be quick, but it's just still waiting.
So their shift, were they like 8 o'clock, 12 hours, 8 hours?
I don't know that for sure to know kind of what the whole shift was. I don't know. But I assure you, breakfast started at 8. I don't think you didn't do anything until lunch.
They fed you? Is that what you said?
No, there was no feed.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Wow, absolutely. Okay. Wow. Thank you. Anyone else have a ride along? So we do have, hi, ma'am, how are you? Can someone give her a microphone?
Is it okay for me to come over there?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Does that one work? Make sure that one.
Testing.
There you go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tijuana Phillips. A little bit about myself. I have a background in being an elected official in Washington, D.C. I worked side by side with former Chief Kathy Lanier and former Assistant Chief Diane Grooms. Have their cell phone numbers and my phone. I can call them anytime I'd like. So that's just to tell you a little bit about myself. When I worked as an elected official in Washington, D.C., I started a group called the Champions Against Crime. And these young people were encouraged to engage with the police and establish a rapport with them. They performed during National Night Out and things of that nature. So I feel like to say that I am not a foe to the police, right? My children aren't foes to the police, but yet, I have 3 children. All of us, at some point or another, have come into uncomfortable situations with the police. Tonight, I just want to speak about one involving my youngest son, who at the time was 17, who is now 22.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interject, but we're going to give you 5 minutes, if that's okay.
I will,
Thank you so much, ma'am.
I'm used to testifying in 3, so giving me 5
It's
gives
not
me 2 extra minutes. I appreciate it.
Okay.
So with that said, my youngest son at the time was a student at Eleanor Roosevelt High School. In October of that year, he had, and you all may have seen this story on the news, he was the single person who saved the life of a 70-something-year-old man who was being attacked by 2 pit bull-like dogs.
What was this? I'm sorry.
This would have been
October, it was Howard's, the homecoming,
yeah.
Howard's homecoming day, 2019. So because of this, he has PTSD. So as a result of him protecting the man from the dogs that he didn't even know, saving this man's life, he was triggered. So he was at the point of being very much suicidal. So I'm working for Lyft, I'm driving, dropping people off and doing things like that, and he calls me and I can tell he's in distress. I'm over in Forestville, he's in Beltsville. I know that if I call the police, they can get to him before I can and save his life. So that was the mindset when I dialed 911. Can you all get to my baby? Because you can get to him before I can get to him. Worst thing I could ever have done. The police and I arrived to him about the same time. The police officer asked me, what did I want to do? I said, can you all help me get him to the hospital? He's in mental health crisis. That led to them throwing him to the ground, putting their knees in his back, pulling him by his hair, pushing him down in the back of the car, pushing his face into the back of the windshield. All of this while I watched. All of this because I called 911 for help. I'm trying to get the police to calm down. They're agitated with me, threatening to lock me up. One officer pushed me in my chest. I literally had one of my best friends on the phone. I clicked over and dialed 911. I called the police on the police and prayed fervently that my son would not be killed that night in my presence. Long story short, they get him to the hospital. They are making slurred comments. They're being very derogatory. They're just not professional by any extent of your imagination.
May I ask how many officers?
It was maybe two in particular that were making the nasty comments, and two in particular that were flat out abusive to both my son and myself. I filed a complaint with the AI office, Internal Affairs, right? And they determined that the officers should be charged. It went to the next level and nothing happened.
What department? The, law enforcement?
Beltsville.
Beltsville Police Department.
I have the names and badge numbers of the officers in my email, but it was the worst experience ever. I am still dealing with the fallout in that my son does not trust me because I was the one who called the police.
May I ask how old your son is?
He's 22 now,
And at the time of the incident?
17, 16, 17. So 17. He was a senior at Eleanor Roosevelt at that time. I'm grateful to say that I'm able to tell the story and he's able to tell the story too. I wouldn't even bring him here to tell you the story because it would trigger him. And then he would start having nightmares again. So if he doesn't bring it up, I don't bring it up. But to me, for me to have police that are my friends and to feel like I cannot trust the Prince George's County Police, no jurisdiction. We've had to call several times. And I cannot tell you one single time when they've responded appropriately.
So, and I'm sorry to keep interjecting, ask questions, but I'm writing this stuff.
Okay, no
So
problem.
what year was this?
2019, December 2019.
And the actual incident happened in October, correct?
No, the actual incident happened in December of
So-
2019. October of 2019 is when he was protecting the man
Oh,
against
okay,
the
I
dog,
got you.
which is what triggered his PTSD.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And actually, he's received special commendation from the former CEO, Angela Olsenbrooks, for saving the man's life.
Wow.
Yeah. Special award, special certificate, all of that. But the same, I don't know what to say. I have a friend who was a pretty higher up in DC he was a commander at 7th District, did an amazing job in Southeast DC. When you all were looking for a chief of police out here to work, I said, "You're the man for the job." He said, "No, I'm not. I don't want to go and work for that racist police department. I'm about to retire. There's no way." We have a reputation for that. What are you all doing to hold these people accountable? That's what I want to know. As a citizen taxpayer, I live here. I work in PG County Public Schools as a substitute teacher. I am vested in the community. I attend Bowie State University. I'll graduate in May. I'm vested. I graduated from PGCC in May of 2023. I am vested. But to be honest with you, once I graduate May 2025, I want to get up out of PG County. I have not had a pleasant experience in this county since I got here, other than being able to matriculate through school. That's it.
So first of all, and I know that you've heard this, but I'm sorry that happened. Sorry that your son is dealing with that. And what we are doing is part of the reason why you're here to hear your story and to also put in recommendations. So we would have to look into it more. But one thing I will say that when it happened in 2019, the new HB 670 law had not taken effect. And so we can't really answer a lot of the questions that you may have at this time concerning that particular case. But I think that is something that we can definitely speak to that law enforcement agency about. If it's a concern for you, it's a concern for us because we represent you. So that will be definitely something that we take. So I will ask you to do this. I know you waited in the cold a little bit, so I apologize for that. But if you could just write that and send that to us, if that would be okay, so we can take a look at that. And we may develop some questions from that. So when we do meet with that law enforcement agency, we will ask very direct questions based off of your scenario, your situation.
I actually requested to speak to the officers myself.
Okay.
I wanted that.
Were you denied?
Yes.
Okay. Did they give you a reason?
No, I just wanted to share with them my disappointment with how they responded to my son. But there wasn't a single Black officer out there.
So, and I'll, okay. Okay, sorry. So we'll have to talk about it, but what I would like to do is to reach out to that law enforcement agency and to see if we can forfeit that meeting, if that would be okay. Okay, but if you could please just send something, write that up, and whatever your son felt that he wants to include in that, ask him to send that to us as well. And so we do have meetings with different chiefs from different law enforcement agencies. And so what we'll do is we'll just try to have something directly with him. We'll try to foster that meeting so that you will have some answers to your questions directly. Because one of the things, while we're not acting as your counsel, we're acting as your representative. Because we do represent the citizens of First Georgia County. Now, while it may be from 2019 before we came into existence, I think that still foster a relationship with the community, police accountability board, and law enforcement agencies. Things like this need to be addressed. You can't say sweep it under the rug just because it happened. 2019 HB 670, it covered it. So we will try to work on that, and we'll be in touch with you. I'll make sure that you have my phone number, the vice chair's phone number as well, so you'll always be in contact with someone.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you so much for coming. And again, we apologize about the cold weather, but, so we gave you 8 minutes because I know it's cold out there, so you just make it warm up. But one of the things I do want to say is thank you for presenting it in a way, because I know it's very emotional to you. It's emotional hearing it. So thank you for presenting it in a way that it was dignified. And I will tell you that we are on it. And so thank you for showing up, bringing that to our attention. Jump on that. We'll take care of it. And I'll speak with the vice chair. We'll make sure that you have our information. So we can talk to you before you leave. After the meeting is adjourned, we'd like to share that information. That's okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there a question? Did you see that as a blocking it?
They asked who was speaking.
Oh. It's Chair Duval.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, thank you so much.
Anyone else have?
Oh, sure. If everybody else have any? Okay. Oh, that's what I was asking. Yes. but I just can't see that far. Use my. Okay, well, this county was out. Oh, okay, just the cap, okay. All right, oh, that's what I thought. Was Brian trying to trick me? He's trying to trick me. Like, okay, so, okay. But if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and close the meeting. We don't want to hold the respectful of everyone's time. Again, man, what was your last name? I'm sorry.
Phillips.
Philip, okay, thank you so much. You look real good in that seat right there. You look like-
I actually,
What's all?
made an effort to be on the board. I really did.
What's all? Again, like I said, we represent the citizens and it's very important. I know that all of us are very, very passionate about police oversight. And so we'll get with you, we'll talk to you after. That's okay. Thank you so much. Anybody have anything else?
I do, I'm sorry, this is boring. But I just, it wasn't on the agenda, but I know we talked about revisiting the draft rule.
Oh, yes, we are, probably at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that you guys work so hard. Man.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want, and it's not boring, so, so we will, yes, ma'am.
There is some additional requests.
Okay, okay. We will do that. So, thank you, Dr. Coleman was not born. And Mrs. Bryant, you were saying something?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn was made by Mrs. Bryant, seconded by Mrs. Ridley. All in favor to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned at 8 o'clock on the nose. Very efficient, thank you.